So, good morning.
Hi, here we are.
Hi. Hi.
Great to see everybody.
Yeah, I'm Marin. I have the honor to be here interview Rob. I think I don't need to introduce you. I'm very honored and happy to have you here in the Brand Week, Istanbul. So,
I'm really happy to be here myself, and
yeah.
I'm loving being in Istanbul.
Yeah, it's a lovely city. Thank you so much for having
And
us.
my first time, it's crazy.
So let's talk with the big man. Our Rob, again, it's an honor for me to be on the stage with you. So starting our conversation, we have some questions for him. I think that I think all the questions are going to be answered for you here. First, let's start with some important thing that you designed the logo of one of the most, for me, is the most loved brands in the world. Can you tell us how it all happened?
Oh, sure. Well, it really all started with one guy, and you know who that guy is. That's Steve Jobs. And the assignment I got was to design a logo for a new little company. There were just two guys in the company, Steve and Steve. And that's about all I knew about it before I met Steve. I knew that he started a new company, and the company was going to be making home computers. They called them home computers then, not personal computers. And the whole idea of having a personal computer, having a computer in your house, was revolutionary. Computers were in banks and things like that. Way too scary for every day. So let's see.
The beginning.
That was it. So actually, I first met Steve when I was told that this guy was going to be coming to the office and bringing his new computer product, and I was saying, okay, well, so he comes in, and I was really surprised. Now I thought we were gonna have some videos or some still photography running in the background.
So
archival stuff, pictures of Steve and pictures of me and pictures of the computer, but I'm not seeing it, so you'll have to trust me.
Yeah, let's see the video so you can see how he met.
So anyway, this guy comes through the door. Oh, that's me, I guess. So
This is some part of this amazing man. He's a legend. So, Rob Janoff, it's amazing to have you here.
Oh, great. It's great to be here.
Starting again with our questions, I would like to know if you studied graphic design in school.
Well, actually I didn't right off the bat. I went to school in industrial design. It was an agreement with my dad. He said, well, I know that you're an artist, but I don't think you're going to make a living as an artist, so I want you to get a degree so you can get a job and you can make your own living, because I'm not supporting you anymore after college. Okay? Okay. So I went to a school that did industrial design, but just before a semester was over, I realized that that really wasn't for me, drawing pictures of products, toasters, and cars, and things like that. But what really interests me is what was going on in the building across the quad. It was the art department, and there were real freaky people there, and it was a much more exciting environment. And I saw what they were doing, and that was it. I got out of one building and went to the next one, and so that was my introduction to graphic design, really. And from an early age, I really loved type and packaging. And I thought, well, okay, I can be a package designer. And
that time, sorry, but at that time, doesn't have a computer.
oh, right. I think people don't really realize. A lot of you weren't around when, in 1977, when I designed the logo. And oftentimes I'm asked, well, what computer did you design that Apple logo on? And I have to say, well, we didn't have computers. We didn't have computers on desks. We did all of our work by hand. We cut things out of paper and glued them on.
Can we imagine that now,
So-
without computer to do that? How hard it is?
So I
I'm-
designed
we started to design.
yeah, well, actually, when I first met Steve, I was sort of shocked because this guy comes through the door with kind of long hair and torn jeans and sandals, and he was unlike any president of a company I've ever met. And right off the bat, I thought, well, this is going to be really interesting. For one thing, he made a company and named it Apple. He named it after a piece of fruit. He named a company that makes a complicated device like a computer out of a piece of fruit. So I knew right off the bat that this was going to be a very interesting assignment. And I felt very fortunate that I was in the right place at the right time to have our paths cross like that. Because Steve came to the agency because he found out that, well, he asked some friends of his who were from Intel Corporation. They were making small computer chips, which really started the whole revolution of small computers. Up to then, it was just big mainframes.
It was in Silicon Valley that time, in
Yeah.
70s in California, right?
Right. And Silicon Valley, if you don't know, it's just south of San Francisco. I was originally from California. So, and Silicon Valley was also where I went to school, in San Jose. So the Silicon Valley at that time was not like it is now. There's a lot of orchards, fruit orchards around, and pretty soon those orchards were vanishing, and up sprouted all these little new companies that were making things with computer chips. And there was a lot of work for people like me because all these little companies needed brochures and needed advertising and logos and things like that. And it was a real mosh of all those kind of things and a lot of competition. And I was just very glad that, like I said, that I was there at the right time.
So, but at this time, you said that you met Steve. He just showed up, and it's the first time you have been with him. It was when he showed up in the in the agency.
Right.
Well, and your impression was, he's a crazy guy. What was your impression of him?
What I thought was really interesting was at the agency at the time, it was full of suits, official business people. And I was expecting that a president of a company would also be in a suit and a tie and all that stuff. But no, he wasn't. He was sort of an anti-suit. And I think he really enjoyed blowing people's minds, being something different in business. Here, the head of a company and scraggly hair and sandals and torn jeans. So, and I think he really got off on that. Let's see, what
And it,
did
you
you
get
ask?
you get the its assignment like
Oh, yeah.
right away.
Right. I mean,
Like he's arriving, ask the
Right.
agency to make it. And
If I don't know how many of you are designers or work in a design firm or advertising agency, but it was just another assignment, just across my desk. And here's a company with a funny name, and the first thing they wanted was a logo.
yeah, and then working on the early time for Apple went beyond just design a logo. Is that right?
Right. Well, what I felt needed to be done was to make a computer something that people would feel comfortable having in their home, something to have their kids learn things. In fact, later on, I found out that Steve really intended that the Apple computer would be a good education tool. So with all of that going on, my main goal there was to make a computer not a scary proposition, because I was not a tech person at all. And I had to, at the agency, we were working on other high-tech accounts, and I would have to ask people, okay, what does it do? What does this new widget do? And they would, and then I would try to put it into something I would understand. And so one of the main vehicles for advertising this was in computer trade publications, which were boring, really. Lots of hardware and lots of widgets. And I thought, well, it would be really easy to stand out in this sea of same grayness. And
So you saw a possibility to make it different.
yeah,
Like
and that was a goal. And actually, it really, I think, went along with who Steve was and who I was. And we were sort of the two freaky people at the agency. He was my client, and I was the weird guy with the hair. And it was a younger generation. I was in my 20s. Steve was in his 20s. And we kind of bonded that way. And I think because we were weird, he trusted me. And so I found it very easy working with Steve. I hear, he had a lot of problems with a lot of people he worked for and stuff, or with, but I didn't experience that. So I was really fortunate with that. And so it made it easy to go from doing a logo to doing brochures to doing advertising. It seems like he was really receptive to whatever I wanted to do.
Did he give you some directions, or he's like
All he said was,
just put in your lab?
don't make it cute, Rob, okay? Okay. So a lot of people think, oh, what I designed was cute. But what he was talking about was he didn't want it to have computer type. He thought that would be very corny. So that was his direction. My boss said, oh, no, we don't want a logo. We don't want an icon. Just put the name there, and then they'll get it. And I said, well, you can't have a product named after a piece of fruit without showing it. So visually, it needed to be an apple. So I
Did you have like any inspiration besides that?
well, one of the things that inspired me in that time, and Steve as well, was that we both liked the Beatles, and we both liked pop art, and it was a time for like bright colors and all that electric excitement. So that was an influence, I think. Peter Max and the Beatles and all. Visually, those were influences.
Yeah, that's why came the stripes.
Yeah, in fact, I forgot that a lot of people didn't realize that the Apple computer was made out of rainbow stripes in the beginning. And as it evolved, it became solid color and crystal colors and things like that. So it was amazing to design something that had a particular goal, and the goal was to make it not non-threatening. I actually needed to be non-threatening for me because I didn't, really get high tech. So, and I'm just looking now behind me. That was their first logo. Was this pen and ink drawing.
Yeah.
And when Steve came through the door with his new computer, it kind of looked like a typewriter, but there was no place to put the paper. So.
And you saw the logo.
Yeah, so I knew that logo could never work on a
Yeah, it's so much information, right?
computer. Yeah, it was not simple. So it was very, very complicated.
I have a question that I think that everybody wants to know.
What's that?
What is the bite for?
Oh, I get asked that so often. Well, so I designed an apple. The first thing I did was I bought a whole bunch of apples and I put them in a bowl and I put them on my desk and I was drawing apples for a couple of weeks. And pretty soon I realized that, well, it's not going to look like any other piece of round fruit. So I knew that the way you use an apple is you bite into it, right? So I decided it really needed to have that element to it, so it looked like an apple instead of a tomato or a cherry or whatever. And it gave it scale.
Wow. Yes,
It gave it
it's
scale,
amazing.
because you
Yeah.
can't really take a bite out of a cherry like that. So,
Yeah, it's true.
yeah. So,
But people think that is the reason
well,
you put it on?
that was really the reason. However, it also meant that there was something inside, something interesting, something in the core. After you bite it, you'll get something back. And a lot of people through the years thought, well, that's an apple, so it has to be related to Adam and Eve, right? It was this very strange thing to design something and then to hear later why you designed it. And that really wasn't it. And there were many other things.
The main reaction for your design, or what's the reaction that you receive? How did Steve Jobs, when he saw that,
Well,
when he looks?
He didn't jump up and down. He said, "Oh, well, that's nice." And you also have to know that we were both young and not real experienced. I mean, it was maybe my third or fourth job after school. I'd only been working in the business for a few years. And so a lot of it happened just because we were young and because we were naive. And in fact, when I first got the assignment to do this, I thought that the apple with a bite out of it would be a very unusual way to talk about a high-tech piece of equipment. The stripes actually came from one of the main features that I thought was really interesting about this computer, in that at the time it was the only computer that showed images in color. And that was because you took the cable from the computer and you plugged it into your home TV set, your color TV set. And you didn't need a monitor, so that was kind of a selling point. You just get it and plug it in, and you have color pictures.
And also approach to people, like I think that's color and approach like
Of course.
it's like, because tech is so
Right. Tech logos at the time seemed to all be blue or black or very, very, very plain. And it was a way to get notice, because like I said, there was a lot of new companies emerging, and that was a way that I could make it to attract attention. So that, yeah, and here you can see on the in back of me those hot colors and the Peter Max art and the Beatles really were an inspiration, because we both like that kind of stuff, and so it was an easy sell.
Oh, and talk about easy sell, like obviously the brand, the Apple brand, and the logo were a success. So tell me about the growth of the Apple brand. Do you think that the logo contributed to the Apple success?
Well, I
It's
like
rarely truly related.
I like to think so.
Yeah.
And I know that, I mean, Steve created this amazing piece of equipment that was very complicated, but it soon really caught on because it was very revolutionary to be able to do computing at your desk at home or at the kitchen table. One of the things I had to do was to tell people what you're supposed to do with this thing, and it could help you with balancing your checkbook and collecting recipes, and kids could play games on it. And beyond that, I knew that Steve wanted it to be an educational tool. And so it was also a way of getting young people involved in tech.
That's why you think that's explain the universal love for this brand, like people get involved. This is
Well, I was so surprised that pretty soon I started seeing Apple logos on car windows and bumpers, and people don't do that if they don't love it. And I felt
Yeah.
like almost that it was almost like a badge for membership in this special club, and it became a very special kind of thing, and that's why people, I think, started to love it. And later on, I was aware. I mean, now I'm talking about laptops and stuff. Pretty soon, people would put stickers on their laptops around the
it's
logo,
amazing.
and like a sticker of Sleeping Beauty holding the Apple logo. It was shining through the laptop.
This is amazing.
So those kinds of things tell me that people loved it, and like I said, I feel so. Oh, there's Sleeping Beauty. So.
So we're starting from this point that the logo is being loved for everybody
Right.
already. You moved from Silicon Valley to New York to work in big agencies
Right. I
and
always
other big accounts there,
Right.
like big things.
I
How
knew,
it happened?
Yeah, I knew in especially advertising, New York was the place to do it. New York, if you could make it there, you can make it anywhere. And so that was kind of a dream of mine, was to get there. And that happened because as Apple became successful, a larger agency, Chiat Day, bought the small agency I was at. And in not very short amount of time, the whole creative department was let go, except me. And I think that was because they wanted to get Steve involved in television. So they moved me to their New York office, which I was thrilled to be living in New York. And so that was sort of how I got there.
So you got there. So did you like advertising? Like you said that you work to,
Right.
do you like an existing brand? What is your favorite? And because you were working on crafting and then to go to advertising, how it comes?
I'm not exactly sure I understand your question, but and so say that again.
I'm saying that. How did you like advertising for an existing brand as
Versus making one.
opposed to crafting it initially?
Sure, it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
Same thing. Just like any logo or any ad, you've got to thinking about who are you talking to, and what do you want to say. So it can be that way in an ad, or it can be that way in a logo design. And so I found it very much the same, but very different, because the budgets were bigger, the people involved were bigger. I mean, I came from a thing where it was me and Steve, and we would put something together, and that was it, and then it would get produced and out the door. in New York, you have a lot of money involved, and so you have a lot of people involved, and it at times became real frustrating because whatever I did for Steve seemed to go along. But
in the end, it's all about advertising. Is all about brand. That's all about a logo, right?
well, a logo is an important part of a brand,
Yeah.
obviously.
Obviously.
And it is a lot more satisfying in a way to be there at the beginning and to start the ball rolling. But I really wanted to be more heavily into advertising. I thought it was a lot more fun to be able to work with other talented people, with writers and with artists and illustrators and photographers. And as it got into television, it was really fun to be able to work with musicians and actors and set designs. Just all that stuff was a thrill for me to be involved in New York.
So that's why now my next question is, because eventually you start your own agency, international agency, and how help international companies to get a more global look. Can you tell us about that, how you do it in your,
Well,
your agency?
I started doing international branding because of a guy I met in Australia who had a small firm. And he said, you know, Rob, people like American graphics and design. And people especially all around the world like Apple stuff. And you're American and you did Apple stuff, so I think we could put that together and maybe make a company out of it. So I said, let's give it a shot. And so we figured out, okay, we'll split everything we get, all the business we get, down the middle, and see what happens. And it was very interesting for me to see companies wanting to be like Apple, wanting to be like American brands. And it's because it became more and more global world, and it made me really appreciate the experience I had, with Apple. Mm-hmm. However, after a while, doing advertising for all those years, it became kind of the same kind of thing. So international work was fascinating to me because you're dealing with different languages and different cultures, and it was all new. Mm-hmm. And I found that really exciting, and also it gave me a chance to travel, like, coming here to Istambul.
Yeah.
And it makes for a very, very exciting life.
Yeah, this is nice.
Yeah.
And also you are helping brands to have a better logo because
sure.
You're so talented.
Right, and actually, I was sort of going back a ways. The logos and branding, there were a lot of brands, well-known brands, but not nearly as many as now. And so trying to take that mm-hmm. around the world to all these different companies mm-hmm. was very satisfying because they were very receptive, very, very open. And then because the Apple logo was so successful, the work that I would be doing for all these different companies would be easily accepted. So I was really glad for that.
And they are all very successful too. So you work on brand projects with different cultures and country. What trends you notice about branding internationally? You said a little bit about that. Can you explore more that?
Well, it was very interesting to me because around the world, I mean, there's great designers all over the world, and it's just not just American design, but it was interesting for me to see where these different countries were in terms of their development of design and logo design and branding. Mm-hmm. And it was like, it seems like we were a little farther along than a lot of other countries in terms of design. And So I was able to just sort of use the skills and the knowledge that I got in this country to, for other
And
countries.
so the good designer is very successful, makes successful branding.
Oh, sure. It's,
Yeah.
The thing about branding is, what are you going to do so people remember you? And that was played out a lot in the Apple logo. It stood out. Nobody was doing multicolor logos and designs for high-tech companies. And since that time, I've noticed that color is creeping into a lot of tech work.
And also made it simple. I saw that you comment once
right.
that make it
yeah,
more
I didn't-
simple and more.
Right. Noticed that it seemed like a lot of companies in other countries were more interested in getting a lot of information out there, as opposed to having an image that was simple and easy to see, easy to remember. And so those were the kinds of things that I was always trying to do. I was always saying that, well, simple is better. It's easier to remember. And that was the basis of, of clean design.
Clean design, perfect. So it's kind of related with my business. I would like to ask you one thing that's I think that's important. When I think about personal art or fine art, I see it's revealing someone's soul. I think the art represents someone's soul. Like it's the only way to shape it, the soul, I used to say. So when you think about creating a logo, do you think it's the same for a company? Do you think, can a company soul be a logo, visualize it as a logo?
Well, I think, sure. I think that they see themselves that way. And I know that artists, when they're doing their art, they put so much of themselves in it that becomes a very personal thing. And I've found that the way to really brand a product is to give it a personality, to give it a strong personality. It says so much without saying a whole lot, shows so much. And
like the Apple logo, like you design like from the scratch with your own hands. That's for me is kind of is an art piece.
Sure.
Yeah. Do you have this piece? you can frame
well,
on
a
it.
lot of
It's
people
gonna
have
be-
asked me, do you have old sketches, your beginning things? And
the
I'm
sketch.
sorry, they don't last for 40 years. So
They don't last, yes, because
It's
the
paper.
graphite. It's paper, yeah, and the graphite,
Right.
yeah. So I think that's since the beginning when you're creative, because you are so creative and you want to create something very unusual as you were doing, you were making something that's from your soul and from your heart, and you make like Apple's icon.
Sure.
Like everyone don't need the name, just the logo tells everything now.
Right. And I think to effectively brand, you really have to dig deep. It's obvious to see when people are doing very surface designs for logos. The ones that really work are when you get to the root of what that company is about, so that you can tell that story. But you really have to, it's not obvious, you really have to dive in and see what's unusual about it, and who's going to like it, and who do you want to be directing your message to.
So, because you are amazing man as a person, and also amazing talent, and you are destined to make our lives different, like with this brand that's amazing and catch us, and we love the brand. Everybody, I think, let's love this brand. I would like to ask you something that once was asked for me. How have you used your success to bring goodness into the world?
Well, it's rare that you get the opportunity in this business to design for a good cause, to design for good, and occasionally that kind of thing happens, and I feel like that's something I'm, helping the world with, and a couple of examples. I was doing a presentation in New York, and part of the presentation was a contest where companies would write in to say why they wanted what they're looking for in a logo, or why they want a new logo. It was a very interesting experience for me, for my team, to be able to pick our clients. So out of about 300 people who wrote in, we picked about 3 or 4 companies to do the work for. And one that I liked very much was a cancer research firm that was from China. And they were taking traditional Chinese medicine, Chinese herbal remedies, combining that with Western biological cancer research. And this firm was formed by a Nobel laureate in San Francisco who paired up with someone from Chengdu, which is where most of those herbs are grown, to make a company and to work at combining those two things. They would pair DNA of the plants with DNA of the cancer cells as a way of fighting cancer. And so that was to be able to work on something that touches people's lives. I know cancer has affected my family and a lot of people's families.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
it's true.
Cancer is all over the place, and it's frustrating that we lose people because of this disease. So that was a very satisfying thing, and it was my way of doing good for the world. And another thing that came out of that same session was a publisher in the UK wanted a book series called Hearing Others' Voices, and it was a series for young adults to get them introduced to different professions, and so this would be about graphic design. Also, it was a place that I could explain about the Apple logo and its history and how that all started. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing that developed from that was designing a logo for this publisher, for this young adult series, was it was an interesting thing to be able to get young people excited about a new profession. I mean, I started my interest in graphics and design and stuff was when I was a little kid. My favorite thing was going to the grocery store with my mom and being wheeled down the aisles, and I would see all these cereal boxes and all these other products. It was like fascinating to me. So I kind of had an early love of type and design. And that's why I thought going into, besides my dad wanted me to do a career where I could do a degree where I could have a career and get paid. Let's see.
Yeah, this is amazing because without the logo to catch your eye, to see what's going on with everything that you are doing, it's hard because there's so many brands, there are so many logos, and when this cancer institution, this young industry, you have to be very
Sure.
consistent doing a logo and
Sure.
catch their attention to.
This publisher, it was very interesting. Doing her logo, she was so fascinated with the process of making a logo that she said, well, we're putting out all these books. I want you to write a book about how this is done, because it was so fascinating for her. And so I did. I never thought I would write a book.
No?
That was the opportunity for that. So did this book, and it's available here also.
I can't wait to buy it.
that has the whole story. And now I'm noticing behind me is like a rebirth of all those rainbow colors. It was like, I think of an anniversary of Apple. They moved into a new headquarters in Cupertino, which is very space age and very beautiful. And they started bringing back the striped colors.
Oh, this is nice.
Which was very satisfying for me.
So for me, and I believe for everybody, another goodness you are doing for the world is to be loved by something that you did. That's an amazing thing that's in our life every day. Thank you so much.
I kind of pinch myself all the time to just realize that is how it happened.
Yes, we have this brand every day. We carry on you with us.
Right.
And it's so nice to meet you in person.
People forget that computers weren't around all the time. The idea of having a computer in the palm of your hand was science fiction. And to be able to live through that era and see all of this develop.
It's amazing, yeah.
It is amazing, and I feel very, very blessed to be a part of all that.
Yeah, and it's amazing to see what happened with that, and it's going to happen next, because it's going to be forever. This brand is forever.
And it's a thing that I know doesn't come around all the time. So I'm really thankful for that.
Yeah, you are destined for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So we are thankful for you to be here, Rob. And
Thank you.
this is Rob Janoff. He's an amazing person. I'm Marin. I'm very glad to be here with Istambul people, very awesome people. And we are grateful to have you all here and listen to us. Thank you so much.